Good morning, race fans. Welcome back to another edition of teams doing amazing one moment and then flopping the next, just how we like it. This weekend we had our second race of the season, the 2025 Chinese Grand Prix in Shanghai, and I don't know, it felt a little underwhelming. Sure, a lot of stuff happened off track, including after the race, which unfortunately we will have to talk about, but the on-track action wasn't that exciting, to be honest. But hey, they can't all be winners, right? Although speaking of winners, personally, I really liked what I saw. So let's dive into both the sprint and the race here at the Race Day Cafe. Let's start by setting the tone for the weekend with a fresh new dose of that good FIA bullshit. Because after the Australian Grand Prix, the FIA decided that they were definitely done with the mini DRS for good because Red Bull suspected that both McLaren and Ferrari were using it still. So the FIA decided to cut down on the tolerance of how much that wing can bend, going from 2mm to 0.75mm for this weekend in China, and down to 0.5mm from the Japanese Grand Prix onward. So essentially they've reduced the movement down to a quarter of what it was, because God forbid that a sport that prides itself on engineering innovation lets their engineers innovate, am I right? So true to form, the broadcast of the practice session kept showing us Lando's rear wing literally every 5 seconds, but McLaren declared that they were not using mini DRS at all, and that consequently they didn't have to make any changes to the car going into this weekend. And it really did seem that way, or at least as far as I could tell, I didn't see any mini DRS. So I don't know, it seems like everyone kind of overreacted. Sorry McLaren haters, but the car really is that good. You're just gonna have to accept it. Moving on to the actual weekend, because this weekend was a sprint weekend, which means double the Formula One-ish, almost, and also double the work for me. So we're in sprint qualifying and we're down to Q3 and... Oh, what? What's that? Sorry, what's that? Am I seeing that correctly? That son of a bitch. He's done it. That's right, bitches. Lewis Hamilton got pole position for the first time since joining Ferrari, breaking the track lap record previously set by Sebastian Vettel. I think that Hamilton himself summed up our feelings about this exactly when they told him over the radio that he had gotten pole, and his immediate reaction was this.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Good job, yes. San Diego.
Same, my guy, honestly, same. Then the sprint race finally came on Saturday, and y'all, when I tell you that I have not felt this nervous about a race start in forever, like when was the last time Lewis started from pole? Hungary 2023. Holy shit. But thank the gods of F1, Lewis got cleanly away at the start. Max Verstappen got pretty close at first, but Hamilton seemed to put together a pretty good tire management strategy. It got to the point where Verstappen was no longer fighting Hamilton and instead having to worry about one Oscar Piastri coming up right behind him very quickly. And indeed, on lap 15, Piastri swooped in and passed him. In the meantime, Lando Norris lost 2 positions at the start on lap 1. A McLaren in P9 is interesting. At the end of the 19 laps, Sir Lewis Hamilton took the win, almost 7 seconds ahead of Piastri, followed by Verstappen in 3rd place. And with the man leading the championship, Lando Norris, taking up the last point available in P8. The sprint revealed 2 crucial things going into the race on Sunday. Well, 3. The first one is that Lewis can still win, bitches. The second is that tire management was going to be crucial because everybody struggled with graining, and that it might be possible to do a one-stop strategy, but the odds of it working were really on the limit, so it was still unclear whether or not one-stop or two-stop was the best. And the third is that, like Oscar Piastri said in Belgium last year,
It goes without saying, but clean air is king.
meaning that whoever has clean air on this track is going to be absolutely miles ahead of everyone else. Before we move on to the actual race, I want to go over my ace of the race and disgrace of the race for the sprint, because I feel like we should have a little something for the sprint, right? As a treat. For me, this sprint's ace of the race was clearly Lewis Hamilton. He just nailed both the race start and the tire management, and it just felt so iconic seeing him win with Ferrari. It was like two giants of Formula One history coming together, and it just felt very good and natural and appropriate in some weird way. I don't know. I hope we can see more of that in the future because the feeling was great. And also, shout out to the fans in the stands with all those 44 flags. It was so sick. The sprint's disgrace of the race was, in my opinion, Lando Norris. It wasn't an absolutely terrible race, but it was definitely worse than what we're now used to seeing from him. I mean, he made some pretty crazy mistakes in qualifying, and it led to him even having to abort a lap. And then in the actual sprint, he only made it to P8. Just kind of an unusual performance for him. In my opinion, I feel like the McLarens kind of relaxed a little bit in sprint quali. Like, they got a little overconfident about how good their car was, and then Ferrari turned out to be fast and McLaren were doing the Pikachu face. But it's all good because Oscar and Lando both had a really great recovery in the Sunday race. So let's move on to that now, shall we? So qualifying happens and Oscar Piastri takes pole position, followed by George Russell and Lando Norris. It was Piastri's first ever pole position, and this image of Lando watching it happen is just absolute cinema. So the race starts and Piastri gets away pretty cleanly, and then Lando Norris very quickly overtakes George Russell, and bam, McLaren 1-2 once again. Piastri gets clean air, and that's pretty much it for him. He's literally gone for the rest of the race. Not a single shot of him until the very last few laps. Norris sticks behind him for most of the race without really much chance of overtaking because of all the dirty air, to the point where he actually wanted Oscar to get further away from him so he could get out of all the turbulent air, which is kind of crazy. Like, being P2 and wanting your teammate in P1 to get away from you. That should tell you how bad the situation was. But Lando's race ultimately went pretty well until the last few turns where he had a brake issue. And if the race had been literally one lap longer, George Russell would probably have overtaken him. But yeah, not much else to say about these top three because they were all pretty much in their own league. But when you go past them, that's where the real action was, baby. So at the start, Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen had a little bit of a fight for P4, but it very quickly ended when Leclerc ran into Hamilton and got himself damage to his front wing. And that is how that fucker stayed for the rest of the race, like just sort of lopsided hanging there. I guess somehow Ferrari worked out that the time it would take them to pit and replace the wing would be more than the time per lap that Leclerc would lose having a broken wing. Make it make sense, Ferrari. It was around this time also that Alonso's brakes just dipped and he was out of the race. He had to retire the car. And that was the only DNF of the race. Weren't there like 3 safety cars in China last year? Also, why is it always Alonso and never Stroll? Around lap 13, all the drivers started to pit for new tires, which left Alex Albon leading the race for a couple of laps on his birthday, which was pretty neat. By this point, it was becoming pretty clear that even though Leclerc had a broken wing, he had more pace than Hamilton, so they were instructed to swap positions. And surprisingly, Hamilton was pretty gracious about it, unlike someone else might have been. Going further back on the grid, Oliver Behrman started a series of pretty sweet overtakes, starting with Liam Lawson, to which he sent a little ciao over the radio. I really hope that becomes like his thing. It was so cute. Then within the next few laps, he overtook Doohan, Sainz, Tsunoda, and Gasly. At this point, we start hearing from McLaren's radio about potential rain. Hell yeah. If only it was real and not a fucking lie. Why'd you get my hopes up, McLaren pit wall? And it's at this point that Lance Stroll finally pits on lap 37. I hate to say it, but it was kind of a tire management masterclass, and it showed every other team that yes, the one stop was actually possible. Anyways, by now Max Verstappen, who is P6, is getting pretty close to Hamilton, so Ferrari decided to pit Hamilton for new tires to try and undercut him. So Hamilton comes out behind Max with an 18-second gap and 17 laps to go. The problem is that everyone ahead is on a one-stop strategy, so no one's gonna go pit, and the dirty air is making it practically impossible to overtake, so Ferrari fumbled the bag once again. And now, it's Leclerc hearing the Jaws theme as Max Verstappen comes up behind him. And he gets overtaken. If only there had been some way to avoid this. If only Lewis Hamilton was still ahead, or if only Charles didn't have, I don't know, a damaged front wing. Speaking of damaged front wing, let's check in on RB, shall we? Hey, remember how everyone is on a one-stop strategy? Yeah, so RB did not get that memo for some reason, so now they're 14th and 16th on the grid. And then all of a sudden, Yuki Tsunoda's wing just snaps. Like, he didn't get hit or crash into anything, like nothing. It just broke off like a piece of Toblerone. I'm guessing that was from all the turbulence of the dirty air, but still, I feel like it should be able to withstand air. It's a fucking Formula 1 car. So Tsunoda had to pit for the third time in this race, and he obviously ended up dead last. And then there was a little fight between Isaac Hadjar and Jack Doohan, which ended in a 10-second penalty for Jack for forcing Hadjar off the track. By the last lap, most drivers are like within over 3 seconds from each other, so there's basically no action. And so this pretty uneventful race ends with Oscar Piastri taking his third win in Formula 1, followed by Norris in P2, George Russell in P3, and Max Verstappen in P4. And the Ferraris were right behind on 5th and 6th. Not their best performance, but not bad. I mean, it was... yeah. So Ferrari got their first ever double disqualification in their 75 years in Formula 1. First, Leclerc and also Pierre Gasly got disqualified because their cars were underweight, and then Hamilton joined the mix because his skid plank was too worn off and therefore it was below the required thickness. So Ferrari's race was already not great, but this just was the final nail in the coffin. So yeah, that was the Chinese Grand Prix. A weird mix of everything and nothing at the same time, but mostly nothing, to be honest. So let's get into my review. This week's ace of the race is none other than Oscar Piastri. Man, he got his payback for Australia, didn't he? You know that fan in the stands that was crying tears of joy because Oscar won? Yup, that was me. That was me. He just got away cleanly and it looked like he was going to win from the start, even if Lando hadn't had his brake issue. And he kept it so professional over the radio, just the whole time. Very clean racing from him. Of course, it helped that the McLaren car is really good at avoiding tire degradation, and also that he was in clean air the whole time. But let's not take away from this guy's brilliant racing, okay? I feel like at this point, Oscar just needs to figure out qualifying to be ahead of Lando, and then he can easily be in the lead for the championship. Like, imagine if he won the world championship in his third year in Formula 1. Like, that's crazy. Also, apparently, Oscar's birthday falls during the Japanese Grand Prix, so he better win that shit. And this week's disgrace of the race is sadly Liam Lawson. I really hate to do this, but Lawson has just been nowhere this weekend. And the last weekend, he was also nowhere. I mean, this weekend he qualified P20, and then in the race, all he did was overtake the Saubers, basically. I've seen people being like, well, at least he can overtake. Guys, he overtook the Saubers. Let's be fucking serious now, okay? I have to admit, I feel really bad about talking badly about Liam's performance because it's only been 2 races, he's still a rookie, and let's not forget, he's in an undrivable car. Because that car has been tailor-made for one person and one person only. It's the Red Bull second seat curse, and we should all know it very well by now. But at the same time, it doesn't really negate the fact that if you're going to be Max Verstappen's teammate in Red Bull, you're gonna have to deliver a bit better than P15. So I am a little bit torn here because while I do think that Red Bull should be giving Lawson more grace, more time to really adapt to the team and his role within it, but at the same time, I do think Red Bull are gonna need a better driver if they really want to be in contention for the championship. Man, if only there was someone out there who had years of experience in the Red Bull ecosystem and had been waiting his entire career for a seat in Red Bull. Oh well, that's too bad, isn't it? Let's move on to this week's strategy disaster class, because yes, it's a disaster class this week, and it goes to Racing Bulls. Is it still V-Carb? I genuinely don't know. Why is it so confusing? Can we go back to Toro Rosso, please? How does this team qualify so well and then finish the race so horribly? I mean, they qualified P7 and P9 and finished the race P14 and P20. They were literally seeing other drivers who pitted around the same time as them successfully pull off the one-stop strategy. And plus, they should have noticed how hard it was to overtake, so they should have known not to do excessive pit stops. So why on earth would they still go through with the 2-stopper? It just makes me mad because from what we've seen, it seems that V-Carb seemed to be the 5th best car right now. So they could have gotten a lot more points than they did if it wasn't for that terrible strategy call. And also, Yuki's front wing breaking off was just kind of ridiculous. Just the cherry on top of the ridiculousness that was RB this weekend. Now for my underdog shout out of the week, which goes to the one and only Oliver Behrman, El Mago del Motor. I think Behrman put together a great race. He ended P11, which is just off the points, but he did some really cool overtakes that were very entertaining to watch. And after all, what is Formula One if not entertainment? And obviously he's moved up since the DSQs, so he's actually picked up 2 points for Haas. Honestly, I feel like Haas is looking a little better than last week, and that's probably because we're now in more typical dry conditions. Like Australia was a little bit of a fluke. So I think the Behrman hype is real, and I want to see more of that, Ollie. Moving on to my favorite team radio of the week. And honestly, this one was tough because Ferrari gave us a few little gems here and there. I especially enjoyed Leclerc's engineer telling him to try something different on the next lap, and Leclerc just flatly going, nope. We hear you loud and clear, Charles. But nonetheless, I think my favorite radio of the week was not Ferrari, but Oscar Piastri's reaction to being told he'd gotten his maiden pole position. I've just had a little scream in my helmet, so I'll not pierce your eardrums. Loved it. It was so funny. Classic Oscar, 10 out of 10. Finally, let's go over my last rankings, which are my favorite moment and my least favorite moment of the week as a whole. For my favorite moment, you might have suspected this already, but yes, it's Lewis Hamilton winning the sprint. As a Lewis fan, I gotta celebrate any and all Lewis fans, because I have a feeling they're gonna be few and far between going forward. But I also gotta give it to the Chinese fans, because they went all out with their little stand sections divided by driver fans. So you could very clearly see like where the Lando fans were, where the Lewis fans were, where the Charles fans were. Like, I thought it was really cool. I feel like it elevated the energy of what was otherwise a pretty dull Grand Prix, and I want to see more things like that in other Grands Prix. And my least favorite moment of the week goes to that Ferrari double disqualification. Just so upsetting. At least I feel like it could have been worse. Like, it wasn't like they were in the lead or anything like that. Sure, like they lost some really valuable points, but it wasn't like wins or podiums or something. I don't know. That's how I'm choosing to look at it, because if I don't, I will get depressed. So that was the Chinese Grand Prix. I'm giving it a solid 3 out of 5 stars. I feel like it kind of went the way Alonso's race did. Kind of fun at first, but then just petered off into nothing. And eventually I feel like it won't be the most memorable in the long run. Finally, before we go, let's take a quick look at our year-long prediction bingo. And once again, you can watch the full video where I make these predictions right up here. And holy shit, we have 3 new spots already. McLaren 1-2, Oscar win, and Williams double points. To be fair, I don't think I expected Williams to have improved as much as they did. I guess Carlos really has been doing a good job as an engineer in there, I see. And you'll notice that I didn't mark the Lewis win space, but that's because when I made this, I don't think I took into consideration the sprints. I think I was thinking of race wins. I don't know, I feel like the sprints are forgettable to me. I don't really think about them that much. So in order to give this bingo a little more difficulty, I've decided that this Lewis win just means race win from now on. So it's not going to apply if he wins another sprint. It's only applying if he wins a full race. But still, 3 spots is really good already. Like, I'm pretty happy with that. We might get a line soon. That was all for this week. Thank you for joining me at the Race Day Cafe. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, you know the drill. Let me know in the comments what you all thought of the race, and which fan or fans in the stands did you think had the coolest merch. Personally, I really enjoyed this Charles Leclerc hat. Thanks again for watching, stay fueled, and I'll see you next race day.